want to let you guys know that we are pretty much in the busiest time ever in clinical research. So all that pressure you all are feeling from every single side of every single representation that we just went through in that poll, that is very real. There has never been more pressure on the clinical trial industry than there is today. As you can see, in December of 2021, we had more clinical trial study starts than ever before.
Sponsors do need education because the insurance company could deny a test and procedure, and the sponsor cannot come to you and say, oh, well, we'll cover the cost for that patient. That is a compliance issue and cannot be done. So if you are relying on sponsor to say, hey, they'll pay for this patient, but insurance is going to pay for that other patient, you cannot do that. That is a big no-no. So that's another reason why we need to have a solid MCA.
So we've been able to, for a while, leverage partnering with companies like WCG and some other companies as well to really be able to augment our staff. So many times, especially when we get notified, oh, we have a trial that's coming in, we don't have enough time to hire people. So because of this, we decided to create what we call flexible staffing, which allows our departments basically to come to our central office and work with us through one of the vendors to identify staff, CRCs, project managers, data entry staff, also research nurses. What we found is that the turnaround time as far as being able to identify a qualified individual for that particular role is shortened significantly. Typically, for us to onboard someone through our regular channels through human resources could take as long as 30 to 45 days. Working through our vendor partners, we've been able to shorten that time to about 2 weeks, which really makes a big difference.
So some of the benefits we've seen with doing these complex clinical trials is a lot more contact with CROs and sponsors. You have to really stay in close touch with those individuals that are running these trials due to that complexity, and have guidance provided to you in a rapid fashion. So if you're not getting responses in a timely way, it can be a real deterrent from being able to accomplish the goals of this study at your site level. One of the other opportunities that comes is speaking with other sites for best practice solutions as they conduct these. So, discussing some of the challenges in a real-time way with, your colleagues at another university academic medical center who are doing the same study. You'll probably be on weekly calls, not just with your own site and the sponsors or CROs, but also with additional sites participating. And so that has been an additional benefit, which sometimes it can be a little more challenging to make those connections at the site level when you're doing just an individual trial.
How important is it for sites to use a CTMS? Zipporah?
I cannot speak enough about how important it is. It is extraordinarily difficult to keep up with all of the billing and the invoicing and the status of where all of our patients are across every single investigator and every single study without a CTMS. It has completely changed the way we keep track of status, revenue, reconciliation of our invoices, and all of our costs being captured.
Making sure that we're having conversations as early as possible in the development of our drugs to make sure that as we think about putting in inclusion criteria, exclusion criteria, and our time and events schedule, that we're thinking about the burden on the patient, we're thinking about how different populations might be impacted by those specific in- and exclusion criteria. And where possible, we're meeting the needs of patients and the science, and making sure that the trials aren't overly cumbersome.
The starting point would be carefully pick your technology and vendors. You should be able to integrate. They should offer you mechanisms of integrations, either that you do yourself or the vendor offers you that. Second, always set a clear scope with your stakeholders when you're integrating. How much will you integrate? What are the key messages going back and forth? And again, I'll bring back to do take advice from your vendors, because as a vendor, we have done so much. We know what works, what are the standard workflows, what would be the source system or advisable source system, and the types of messages that go back and forth. And finally, plan big, but start small. Again, don't get overwhelmed with that image and say we have to integrate 20 systems. Start with your top priority.
Treating your relationship as a partnership and having the two-way communication and really understanding what the needs are, I think was alluded to earlier, what the staffing needs are, and support the sites in that manner, within fair market value. And, what we've done at Jounce is use some of the staff from 3Wire and understanding what the sites need, whether it be a data manager for data entry or a recruiter or somebody to help with administrative work, understanding what those needs are, and then providing it through our the site augmentation through 3Wire.
Independent adjudication group, in sort of contradistinction to a data monitoring committee, looks at individual patient data as they go through the trial. And they're looking at endpoints. We've been talking about endpoints. And there's both efficacy endpoints as well as safety endpoints. So the reason you would adjudicate is that it really increases the precision of the endpoints, because you have a standard way of evaluating an endpoint. And this is sort of favorably viewed by medical device regulators, European regulators, and scientific publications. And it is and has been required for certain types of trials by the FDA.
The good news is oncology research is dramatically different than where it was a couple of years ago. The number of startups, it's gone from a world, we're not going to see as many phase 3 clinical studies or even phase 2. It's moved to a world of early drug development. How do you get phase 1? How do you get a signal? And are you going to do a phase 1B expansion and then, punt or come up with a larger study? You don't see these 20 to 50 patient clinical studies anymore. They're phase 1s and expansion, and then they either go to phase 3 or the drug is killed. And how do you get oncology sites? These phase 1Bs, phase 1s, and early phase clinical studies are a lot more resources at a site.